Shalawama, Shalawama, I'm Dr. Yasapa. Hey, today we are going to talk about the possibility of war in Ukraine and what it means to us as the House of Yasharallah, okay? And to be frank, what it means to us has nothing to do with Bible prophecy. It has nothing to do with Bible prophecy, all right? So all of this end time prophecy stuff that you hear the Christian pastors talking about and the Hebrew Israelites talking about end time prophecy, so on and so forth. All these things relate to what the Christ figure said, right, about the last days, the Great Tribulation, and all the events that would happen that would lead up to it. Absolutely nothing to do with that. It has absolutely nothing to do with anything but politics. The same politics that these people who have taken our land and resources in the Americas and also in Europe have been engaging in to keep you tied up mentally, in the Bible or New Testament. That's what I mean, the New Testament end time prophecy stuff, okay? Which is not even in New Testament. This is a philosophy that was made up, okay? It was made up and adopted, right? So the political powers on earth act in such a way to provide evidence that these prophecies are real and that they're being fulfilled. And what's the purpose of that? The whole purpose of it is to keep you afraid, to keep you hooked, to keep you tuning in, to control your thinking and your behavior, all right? And to keep you on your knees praying for somebody to help you, afraid so that you can't think clearly, all right? So when you hear about these wars, particularly the possibility of war in Ukraine, don't be afraid. Life is not going to change for you. Nobody's going to crack the sky. If they were going to crack the sky, it would have happened by now, right? But it hasn't happened. That's because in the Torah, the so-called Torah, right? In the Most High's law, it doesn't say anything about any end time prophecies. That's the point. So you can talk to your pastor or rabbi about the things that I'm saying. There's nothing in the Most High's law that says that there's going to be Gog of Magog and all of this other kind of stuff, all right? You won't find anything from Moses talking about that, none whatsoever. In fact, what Moses says is that the only way out of this oppression for us, the only way out of the curses for us is to return to the Most High and follow his instructions. There is no wars and great tribulation that's going to happen in the Mosaic covenant, in the contract. It does not exist. It does not exist, okay? So you have Moses and what Moses said, and you have what everybody else said. So you choose who you're going to listen to, okay? And I'm going to say it again. This war or potential war in the Ukraine will not affect you in any way whatsoever from a religious standpoint, all right? And just use common sense. Why is it and how is it that all these nations who are supposed to have problems with one another, okay? They're not even nations, actually. All of these corporations, the 100-something corporations on earth right now, all of these corporations, so-called nations, they come together after they're at odds and, you know, fighting and disagreeing, arguing. They come together over the pandemic, and they all start to act together as one, even though it's against their own best interests, even though it harmed their economies, harmed their militaries. Forget about what it did to the people. right? But you always notice that the nations are always fighting over what? Money and their economy, power, influence. But why is it over the pandemic, they all come together as if they're on the same team? At the highest levels, they're on the same team. That's the only way it could have happened, okay? You may have seen it, or we may have seen it act out through the World Health Organization. But let me ask you, in your own lifetime, have you ever seen groups of people who have big problems with each other, or even little differences between each other, come together to such an extent where they sacrifice their own lifestyle? Have you ever seen that? I've never seen it. They not only sacrifice their own lifestyle, but they sacrifice everything, destroy the house, completely destroy it, like what's happened in a lot of these countries. And everybody went along with it. So you have to ask yourself, why did these nations go along with it? Right? Why? What's the reason? So with Ukraine and Russia, why all of a sudden they're fighting, they're arguing, and they're ready to go to war over a pipeline or over whatever it might be? Why? You have to ask yourself, does it make sense? Why not over the things that allegedly caused this pandemic? Why wasn't that enough to make different nations start to rise up against each other? What happened? And then how do you explain it? Other than they're all on the same team at the top, okay, at the elitist levels. They're all on the same team. And there's a puppet master, right? There's a puppet master keeping you busy, keeping you afraid, keeping you focused on religion, all right? Keeping you looking for a savior, okay? That's what it's about, keeping you busy. What's the purpose of religion? It's to control the population, to get you to submit, and you submit through fear because you're confused and you don't know a way out, right? Because you've been taught to rely on an external deity instead of yourself. If you were taught to rely on yourself, you wouldn't be afraid. You'd be figuring ways and means out, and you'd already have things planned. You'd already be self-sufficient, right? And you certainly wouldn't be afraid of what's going to happen and feeling guilty about what you did last night, last month, 6 months ago. You know, maybe you slept with somebody's wife, or you slept with somebody who you weren't married to. Whatever. All of these guilt trips that they put you under in all of the religions, this morality game that they play on you. All right. The tax you got to pay for being human and having human desires and emotions. All right. So let's make this video. Let's get ready to wrap it up. I just want to show you guys that Russia has made the decision to deploy troops. And most people probably already know this. Russia made the decision to deploy troops on a peacekeeping mission into Ukraine. But everybody knows what that is, right? If you watch the US history and this whole game they play about peacekeeping troops, you know that that's a scam, okay? All right, so let's get into the video. Give me 1 second. This is very short video.
On the matter of Russia using its armed forces outside the territory of the Russian Federation. Please, you can now vote. This is document number 41. The decision is now unanimously taken. The decision is approved. We'll now vote.
All right, so the Russians approved Putin's decision, okay? So it's gonna be a lot of problems, right? Maybe not. Maybe nothing's gonna happen, okay? It really doesn't matter. What matters is that they're keeping the world busy, being afraid, okay? The politics and religion are not separate. That's a myth. Go read the Secret Treaty of Verona, Secret Treaty of Verona. Politics and religion are one and the same, one and the same. If they can't control your mind, they can't control your body, okay? If they can't control what you think, they can't control your behavior, okay? So they're always going to push you into religion. And these prophecies never happen. It's always talk, talk, talk. And then the preacher goes in and explains why. Nothing happens. And then another event happens. Isn't this the way it's been? Right? Since this end time prophecy has started, nothing has ever happened. And then a new generation of children are born. And then they grow up believing the same hustle because they were taught it to their parents. They were taught it by their parents and taught at school. Every generation thinks their generation is going to be the generation where it finally happens. But the hustle never becomes true. It's just a hustle. That's all it is, a scam. And if you come to class Saturday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll spend some time showing you that end time prophecy is not in scripture. It is a hustle. It's a doctrine, a made up doctrine, okay? That's all it is. The priest and the religion, the rabbi, they benefit because they get paid, right? They get a tax from you each month. You give them a tithe, you give them a donation. You do all these things for them in a financial way, right? And your life has yet to improve for generations. And the politicians win because the government controls what you think, where you go, and ultimately what they can do, the power and the wealth that they can achieve, right? Without you rising up and rebelling, how much they can tax you and make you work for them and for corporations for basically free, okay? Basically for free. Even if you have a job that pays well, what is it? What are you getting paid? You're getting paid Federal Reserve notes. It has absolutely no value. The Federal Reserve can bankrupt you overnight through interest rates, right? How? Making the prices rise, okay? Causing higher, raising the interest rate so that money becomes more expensive. In other words, you pay more interest, okay? They can do a lot of things to sabotage the economy, to completely destroy you and take everything that you've worked for. And the people in the US have made it possible to do it. Why? Because they've been misled and pacified by religion. But anyway, that's it. Let me play a little bit of this video. I thought this video was very interesting. Give me a second, scholars.
He recognized Donetsk and Luhansk as independent. Hours after Putin's order, an unmarked military convoy was seen on the outskirts of Donetsk. The United States has called Putin's claim of troops being used as peacekeepers nonsense and warned of dire consequences for Ukraine, Europe, and the world should Russia launch a full-fledged invasion. A growing number of world leaders have condemned Putin's recognition of separatist areas as a violation of Ukraine's sovereignty and a breach of international law.
Now, we've seen Western countries do this very same thing in the recent wars beginning since 1990. They use the same excuse. You see, this is a hustle, right? It's a hustle. So why would you believe someone who's lied to you in the past? More specifically, who's made excuses about going to war? A known liar. Okay, did you forget? Or are you afraid to use your mind? Or you just don't care and you just watch the news and you believe everything, right? So a known liar who never keeps an agreement, right? Someone who is involved in active genocide, using science to commit genocide, and then going out in a straight face and telling you that they're only trying to help you. But you believe it, right? but you believe it. Okay. That's the Negro, black, and colored. So let's continue.
Ukraine's president says his country won't give up any territory and is calling for support.
It's a message that sent chills down many spines around the world. Vladimir Putin, again, with little proof, blaming Ukraine for fighting in its east and hinting that even more may follow.
We demand that Kiev stop its military operations immediately. Otherwise, all responsibility for the potential continuation of bloodshed will be fully on their conscience.
With a few strokes of his pen, Russia's leader made a diplomatic solution to the crisis seem all but impossible and sent Europe on a dangerous path, perhaps towards a major war. The US Secretary of State said in a tweet that Russia's recognition of the separatist regions would require a swift and firm response. Details on that response are still to be made public by Ukraine's allies. The country's President Volodymyr Zelensky made a renewed plea for tough sanctions on Moscow.
We expect clear and effective support from our partners. We'll now look closely to see who our true friends and partners are and who will continue to try to scare off the Russian Federation with mere words.
Ukraine says it will not give up its territories and accuses Russia of tearing up the Minsk roadmap to peace.
Our correspondent, Fani Pachar, is...
So let me say this. So the US and other Western nations, they've been using financial sanctions for decades to harm politicians, business leaders, and countries that they don't like. Do you mean to tell me that for decades, they haven't figured a way out so that when the US wants to harm them, they can't harm them financially? They haven't figured out how to do that yet? Do y'all believe that? To me, it seems like they would have found a way to hide and protect themselves so that they wouldn't what? Be vulnerable to economic sanctions. So that's my thought process, right? But what would you do if someone came in and messed up your money once, twice, 3 times? You're an absolute idiot if you didn't make changes, right? They come in, mess up your money, and you don't figure some way out to avoid that in the future. This doesn't make sense. It's nonsense. Let's continue.
in the Ukrainian capital, Kiev, and joins us. Fanny, what is going on in Donetsk and Luhansk right now?
That's the challenge, really, to independently verify what is happening right now at this 400-kilometer front line that separates Ukrainian forces on the one hand and the pro-Russian separatists in Luhansk and Donetsk on the other, because information is being controlled both by Russia and Ukraine, but specifically by pro-Russian separatists in Luhansk and Donetsk. You need a special permission even before this escalation had started here, both here during the past week as a journalist to report from there. So the information that we rely on or that we have is that what we're getting from international monitoring organizations like OSCE that said over the course of the past days there have been massive shellings. Now, both parts here, Ukraine and Russia, are accusing each other to be the origin of that shelling. And as we have heard, Russia declaring that they are about to send forces to the eastern part, to what they call independent states now, Luhansk and Donetsk. They say this is like a peaceful mission. It's something that was rejected by the international community, that this is nonsense, the United States pointed out. The problem really is what is happening there right now as I'm speaking to you. This is hard to verify, and this is the danger in this situation, because a provocation, a bigger provocation that could be understood as such by both parts could happen, which, and there is this fear by the West, could unleash a much bigger escalation, even a war over Ukraine.
Okay, very difficult to get clear information, of course, out of that conflict zone right now. but we do know that Ukrainians are reacting to what's happening. Tell us more about what you've been learning from Ukrainians in the capital.
So just imagine this, scholars, just imagine if at the very highest level, all of these so-called nations, what if the leaders are the same, right? What if the leaders are not even the corporate leaders, but some level of leadership above that? What if they're all on the same team? And all of this stuff, the politics that we see in every nation, what if all of that is theater? I'm not saying it's true, but just think about it, right? Use your brain to think through things, to find possibilities. What if they're all on the same team? And the whole goal is to keep the people under control and to extract all of the wealth for themselves, right? And then have minions, politicians, corporate leaders, so on and so forth, who are doing their dirty work, some knowingly, some unknowingly. What if that's really what's going on? Maybe that's, if you haven't read the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion, then you really should not speak on the topic until you go read the the Protocols of the Learned Elders of Zion. I have some videos and also a link to the document on Zion Law School on YouTube. That's our YouTube channel, Zion Law School, okay, on YouTube. Go through those videos about the learned elders of Zion. Let's continue just for maybe another minute or two, and then we'll wrap it up.
People here are surprised, basically. They didn't think that it's going to happen this soon or that it's going to happen at all, that Russia's President Vladimir Putin is going to make this declaration and create realpolitik from his perspective and declare that Luhansk and Donetsk are independent, with that also making clear that's no longer Ukraine. People are really worried as they look to the West. That's where the NATO allies are, and to the East where Russia is, and they themselves being in between these two parts. What is going to happen? Is this conflict going to further escalate and actually mean a full-scale invasion by Russia, something that they've heard over and over again during the past week with various dates and various possibilities? Even though people are in general still calm, they are bracing for an escalation. They want to remain calm, but at the very same time, after what happened yesterday by Putin recognizing these two separatist self-proclaimed republics as states, now people here on the ground in Kyiv feel that more scenarios that they thought are unlikely could actually be very, very likely.
Ronnie, thank you much. Stay with us. Let's take a quick look at Donetsk and Luhansk, the two regions in eastern Ukraine that Russia has now declared to be independent.
Reminders of war are everywhere in Donetsk and Luhansk. The two provinces lie in eastern Ukraine on the border with Russia.
These are the provinces at issue. Russia recognized them as nations, okay? So now this causes a crack. This is a way for the Russians to go in, okay? It's a way for them to go in. But these are family members. This is a family feud. These are the same people, same bloodline. Y'all keep that in mind. It's the same bloodline. But Putin is saying that Ukraine is being used by the US and what other Western nations to do harm to Russia, to his country. But Ukraine and all these little countries that used to be part of the former Soviet Union, that's all the same family, meaning what? All the same bloodline. So this is a family fight. It's a family problem, okay? It has nothing to do with the House of Yasharallah whatsoever.
Declared independence after the revolution in 2014, which most in the region did not support. Separatists voted to join Russia and have fought Ukrainian forces for control ever since. Around 4 million people live in what's called the Donbas region. It's known for heavy industry and coal mining, and its large Russian and Russian-speaking population. In the main city, Donetsk, banners read, "We are Russian." Moscow has handed out hundreds of thousands of Russian passports. But life is tough, caught in the middle. Many who can have left. Most pensioners are stuck. Others fight. Ukraine estimates there are around 35,000 separatist troops and accuses Moscow of filling up their ranks with Russian soldiers. In 2015, a ceasefire signed in Minsk helped end full-scale fighting.
So this is the issue right now. Russia, Putin is saying that the US and the other Western powers are not following this agreement. Putin is saying basically, well, the Russians are basically saying, well, they're not following it, so we're not going to recognize it anymore. They're saying they've been trying to implement it since it was first initiated, right? And they've had no success. The US is just ignoring it. So are the other Western nations. So this is the key, right? Because in that agreement, they have protocols on how to deal with their problems.
Conflict has dragged on, leaving more than 14,000 people dead.
So funny. What does Ukraine expect next? Does the government believe that Russia will limit its deployment to the two separatist regions, or is it anticipating a broader escalation?
So far, Ukraine, President Zelensky always maintained that the probability of a full-scale invasion, that means even an assault here in Kiev, is highly unlikely. It's a very low probability there. But as we have seen the situation changing yesterday with Vladimir Putin's announcement that these two states are going to be declared independent, of course, there are various options and scenarios on the table here, while President Zelensky hopes that there's still room, even though that window seems to be narrowing, but that there's still room for some sort of a peaceful negotiation here. Now, as I'm speaking to you, we are hearing reports that tanks were seen, witnessed entering these separatist states, Luhansk and Donetsk. Russia made the announcement yesterday. They are going to deploy forces across the border, but they also said that this is just a peacekeeping mission. Also, they accused Ukraine that they commit a genocide in the separatist regions. So you hear.
So y'all hear how Russia is saying they're going in for peacekeeping reasons and that there's genocide happening, right? Every country uses that same excuse or alibi when they want to invade another country, okay? It's the same story everywhere. Why? To get you emotionally hooked and to what? Play on your emotions and your Christian values, right? Your Christian values. That's what's happening, okay? So they're justified because they're going in to stop the killing, the genocide, that sort of thing. But we've seen that. So let's not be fooled by this kind of tactics anymore. And let's not be emotionally involved or afraid of this end time prophecy stuff, okay? This great tribulation stuff, all right? So I'm Dr. Yasapa. I highly advise you to do your best that you can to learn your heritage, learn your culture. Let me show my screen. Learn Ibaryath, subscribe 101 Ancient Ibaryath. This is going to teach you your language, your original language, okay? It's going to help you return to the Most High. Don't allow these religions and religious people to continue to play you and pull you into the drama and trauma, all right? Saturdays, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a class. I can teach you more about this at that time. But remember, according to the Mosaic covenant, the contract, the only way that we can get out of our present situation is by returning to the Most High. The only way we can get out of the curses is by returning to the Most High. It is not going to be through some great tribulation. That's just not in the Mosaic covenant, all right? So come to class, I'll show you. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. The link to the Saturday live online class is in the description box. And the link to the 101 Ancient Ibaryath course is also in the description box. You can go to zionlawschool.org, click on course offerings, and you'll see this advertisement. This course is basically, it was almost free. $1 for one-day trial, 113 video lessons, and it's only $10 per month, only to subscribe. And it is a highly, highly comprehensive introductory course. You don't need any prior knowledge of Ibaryath. This is not biblical Hebrew. It is not modern Hebrew. It's none of that. This is your original language. So come get it. The market value of this course is between $8,000 to $10,000. I could easily ask for that amount and it would be fair. But the price is only $10 per month for a subscription so that no matter what country you are in the world, you can afford to get it, okay? No matter where you are, okay? No matter where you are or what your financial situation is, as long as you have a desire to return to the Most High, you can subscribe and get the course. So with that, I'm gonna say Shalom, and I'm out.